Second part of 3.2 is coming out. We have Yae Miko return with Childe, but more importantly, we now know the 4-star characters, Layla, which I'm going to be talking about quite a bit here. I think she's very powerful with the return of Thoma, as well as One Punch Man. Now, this banner is going to be very difficult for a lot of players to decide to pull on because Nahida was already released, and she's been one of the most plug-and-play characters in Genshin Impact. It's very difficult to make a bad Nahida team. Very many characters she works super well with. Very many 3- and 4-star weapons that she's fantastic on. But that banner's going away now. But the first character that's getting rerun that we're talking about, Yae Miko, does get buffed up by Nahida. Being Electro, she's got access to Aggravate or Quicken teams. She also has access to Hyperbloom. And most importantly, Nahida is pretty good at giving you up to 250 free elemental mastery, which does do some work for Yae Miko because of her Enlightened Blessing. She's going to get damage bonus to her elemental skill, boosted by her elemental mastery. Now, this is going to allow you to build her for full crit rate, crit damage, and still get that nice elemental mastery bonus if you're using Yae Miko with Nahida in your teams. And it's a pretty potent combo. I'm sure you've seen videos on it. It's just, you put them in the same team and they're going to do a lot of work together. So if you're a big Fox Girl fan, now's going to be a time for you to pick her back up again. And just like Nahida, she's going to have access to quite a few nice 4- and 5-star weapons that you don't really have to pull for if you already have access to them. So Skyward Atlas and Lost Pairs of the Shaker Wind, very old 5-stars, still usable on Yae Miko, especially getting that boosted attack percent or that boosted crit chance percent. It's going to help your overall DPS when you're getting that elemental mastery bonus from Nahida. But my all-time favorite Yae Miko weapon is still the Wid Sith. You swap and you get the buff, you put your little fox turrets down, you swap back out, it's a good time. And another change that didn't exist the first time Yae Miko was around, well, Dendro's here, and they also did go back and change the Thundering Fury set, which is going to be astounding for her because they did add Aggravate reactions to this as well, reducing the cooldowns as well as increasing the damage you're doing from Aggravate. So while she wasn't directly buffed, she was indirectly buffed by just different characters existing, different sets getting changed, and having access to unique weapons. With all of these things to consider, she's pretty powerful. If you didn't get your hand on her the first time, now's your shot. Let me know how you feel about that down below. Speaking of characters who have been indirectly buffed, Childe's going to be one of those as well. Due to the addition of Dendro in the game, he's one of the quickest applicators of Hydro, especially if you want like a main off-field DPS combo. He's going to be available for Bloom teams. He's going to be available for Hyper Bloom teams. He's there to do some work. And while a little bit more narrow than the likes of Nahida or Yae Miko, if you're a Bloom/Hyper Bloom player, you don't have access to Childe. You've been seeing people do cool stuff with Bloom and Hyper Bloom. Now is your shot to go ahead and get him once again. Outside of Dendro being added to the game, he hasn't gotten a lot of additional indirect love from new artifact sets or weapons being added to Genshin Impact, not nearly as much as Nahida or Yae Miko has. Now, as for the returning 4-star characters, Thoma and One Punch Man, we've kind of seen what they can do already. Nothing's really changed with these characters. Thoma is one of the best characters for a consistent barrier, but when we talk about barriers, I want to talk about Layla for that, and I think Layla is going to take the cake there. And when it comes to One Punch Man himself, he hasn't really changed how you're going to be using other characters in Genshin Impact. Usually you're going to be building a team sort of around him and his damage potential as an Animo character. So if you're looking for someone to sort of support your team, he's not going to be doing that for you. If you're looking for someone that's kind of fun to utilize and do damage with, he's there. But as an Animo character right now, there's not a lot of ways to really buff up the amount of damage an Animo character is going to do. A lot of these Animo shreds are on Constellation for 5-star characters, or, well, let's say Animo is going to get a lot more love in 3.3 when 2 new Animo characters, a 4-star and a 5-star, come out, and they're both based around making Animo characters do as much damage as possible. And as of right now, we really don't have access to that. So if you're not a Wanderer fan, you're a Heizou fan, you could get some constellations for him, and then in the future, get all the additional Animo increasing stuff in 3.3. Now, Layla's going to be a pretty awesome 4-star character. She's got a lot of potential out there. Let's talk about the thing that she does that everyone may know about already. She's a very good shield bot character, and that's the first and most minimal thing she can do for you. How strong is her shield though? Well, if you take a look at the multipliers, at talent level 10, multiplier wise, she's a little bit lower than Zhongli. She is a 4-star character. Constellations are a little bit easier to gain access to. Eventually, you might get some constellations for her from the normal summon pool or pulling for other characters. And if you do that, well, you're going to get up to a level 13 talent, and around level 13, you'll be about a level 10 talent for Zhongli as far as multipliers go on how big of that shield you can use is. But if we're gonna hit talent level 13 here, the shield strength as far as multipliers goes is about as strong as Zhongli. They're almost exactly the same. Now she is a cryo character, Zhongli's Geo, so while the multipliers for the shield are the same, as far as effective absorption goes, Zhongli is gonna be stronger against every element that's not cryo because he has the Geo bonus to Geo shields, 50% absorption against everything, whereas she only has 250% absorption against cryo. But this is the coolest plug and play shield. It's a 12-second cooldown with a 12-second duration. It's a huge number and you get it right away. You don't need to do what you need to do with Thoma, where you have a little shield and you have to auto attack, normal attack, charge attack to build it up over time. You hit the button, you get the giant shield. And that's not the only thing that it does. In addition to this, it's got a little side effect. We'll call it the star system. Now, as you use elemental skills, you will gain 2 charges, 2 little stars. And once you get 4 stars, it will shoot those stars out, doing cryo damage and applying cryo to enemies. However, you don't only get them from using elemental skills, you also generate 1 star every 1.5 seconds, which means that if you use 1 elemental skill around every 3 seconds, you can have this thing just firing off stars all the time, applying cryo to enemies, which is pretty nice. Now, this means she's going to work really well with characters who have low cooldowns on their elemental skill. For instance, Albedo with a 4-second cooldown can pretty much make it so she is always shooting off this cryo application. Other characters like Ganyu, if you have her Constellation 1, with the double use of her elemental skill, is going to make it pretty easy to keep that barrier up, as well as apply cryo while you're charging your bow with your Ganyu to keep enemies frozen and away from you. It's going to be fantastic in Ganyu freeze teams. And that's just her elemental skill. That's not talking about her burst. It's not talking about any of her ascensions. We're not even talking about constellations yet. And the elemental burst is pretty easy to do and makes Layla even all that more powerful. It's very cheap. It only costs 40 energy and the duration on it is 12 seconds. It also has a 12-second cooldown, meaning you can have this uptime 100% of the time, and it's very easy to fill 40 energy in 12 seconds. Put a little bit of energy recharge, 30, 40, 50%, you're good to go on this character. Stat crit chance, crit damage, HP percent for the giant shield, and you have a very strong, very powerful shielder, sub DPS in a cryo team, in a freeze team, and a fridge team. It's going to be good. And then we get into the real sub DPS potential of Layla. Before we had the HP barrier, but the damage from the stars isn't scaled off your HP. With this burst though, when you fire it, it is going to be scaled off your HP. It's a 12-second cooldown and a 12-second duration, meaning it has 100% uptime as long as you can meet the burst cost. But the burst cost is only 40 energy, which means if you have like 40% ER, maybe 50% for some teams, you're going to be good to go. 100% burst time on this elemental burst. And so what do we get from this burst? Well, we get continuous HP based damage from Layla. And on top of that, it also generates a night star for her elemental skill, meaning that once every 1.5 seconds, you'll get 1 star passively from her elemental skill. And then every time this burst hits, that's another star. An elemental skill being used also gives you 2 stars, and that's all 4 stars you need for the elemental skill to also be firing extra damage in cryo application. She's just going to be freezing everyone left, right, and center, providing giant HP barriers, and we haven't even gotten into her passives yet. And the ascensions are pretty awesome here. Now, the first one here is going to give you stacking shield strength 6% every single time you gain a star passive on the elemental skill. This stacks up to 4 times, so 24% shield strength. That's pretty powerful. The second passive is going to add HP scaling to all of the stars you're shooting from your elemental skill, making it so her elemental skill and her burst both have HP scaling. Now, the burst has way more, but it's still double HP scaling, sub DPS, shield bot, freezing character. And it gets better. She's the best, by far the best, Tenacity the Millisect set character I've seen in Genshin ever. The 2-piece is great, 20% HP, we love to see it. The 4-piece, well, remember, her elemental skill does shoot the shards, and that does count for Tenacity the Millisect set. So permanent 20% attack, 30% shield strength for your active character and all other party members. It's awesome. You apply this with the Ascension passive, you're looking at over 50% shield strength, which is sweet. And now we're talking around the lines of 50% increased effectiveness for all shields with tenacity plus her own ascension. It's pretty good. And as for weapons, she's gonna have 3 really good ones here. So obviously the Primordial Jade Cutter is fantastic for her. Gives her a ton of crit rate, gives her HP percent, as well as gives her HP to attack percent. That part we don't care about that much, but that still will help out the elemental skill damage because that's attack based for the most part, not HP based. This weapon has everything for you. Yes, that's right. The return of the Harbinger of Dawn. It's going to be a fantastic weapon on Layla. No, it doesn't have health percent on it, but what it does have is a ton of crit damage as well as a ton of crit rate. As long as you can stay above 90% health on Layla, which shouldn't be a big deal because you're going to have ginormous shields, this can give you a ton of free stats, and a lot of her damage is HP based. So we don't care about the low base attack. We don't care about the lack of attack percent here. This is going to allow you to maximize the damage you get from her elemental burst relatively cheaply. And if you've gone through and you don't have any energy recharge on your gear and you've been playing Genshin for a while, well, the Festering Desire is going to be there for you too. It's going to have 45 ER, which is going to be more than enough on its own to cover any ER requirements to use her elemental burst 100% uptime. On top of that, it also is going to give you elemental skill damage percent bonus and elemental skill damage crit rate for your stars. Now, sadly, this is elemental skill only, so it won't be applied to her elemental burst, which is where a lot of her damage comes from. The other 2 weapons are definitely better. If you have this one though, and you don't have the other ones, you could just be looking at your ER weapon of choice. And while the Sacrificial Sword isn't really going to be as good as you think it is if you're looking for an ER weapon, because it does have a lot of energy recharge, but number one, she doesn't need the full 61% ER. But on top of that, one of the best reasons you're using the Sacrificial Sword on characters like Xingqiu is because they generate a ton of particles when they use and activate the skill itself. She kind of generates them randomly during the duration of her elemental skill, so you're kind of losing that there. And on top of that, if you have a big enough barrier, it has 100% uptime anyway, so you don't really need to reset it. All in all, it's kind of a loss of a weapon compared to the other ones. There's going to be a lot of cool teams that could utilize Layla. We've already talked about the Ganyu squad. It's going to be in a freeze team. You could replace the likes of Diona with her. Constant shields, no healing, but a very, very thick barrier, as well as being able to freeze enemies for your Ganyu as you're trying to line up your shots. Another character that's going to be pretty awesome with her is going to be Hu Tao. Usually you have the double Hydro Zhongli Hu Tao team. If you want to use Zhongli somewhere else, well, you can take Zhongli out of that, put Layla there. You're going to have a giant shield still, and you also will periodically sometimes freeze enemies for Hu Tao, and then you'll not vaporize them, but melt them to get the giant ×2 damage bonus, which is quite sweet as a solid addition. There's a lot of applications for a character like Layla in Genshin. Giant shields is like one of the easiest ways to actually play this game. And then a character for the first time is able to apply Cryo super fast and consistently because of both 100% uptimes on the skill in the burst. You're going to find a place for her somewhere. The downside is she is on the rerun banner, and the other 4 stars honestly aren't super stellar in the new current Dendro. Let's explore new mechanics and teams that Genshin currently is in. Let me know how you feel about it down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.